Imagine this. You have done everything right. You followed the path laid out before you. You worked hard, you kept your promises, you showed up even when showing up cost you something. You built the life that was supposed to feel like a rival. And then one morning, without warning, without a dramatic reason, you woke up and nothing worked anymore. Not in the way a machine breaks, loud, obvious, traceable. It broke the way a foundation cracks, silently, beneath everything. And on the surface, your life looks the same. The job is still there, the relationships are still there, the routines you've carried for years are still running. But they're running empty. Like an engine turning over with no fuel left, making all the right sounds while moving nothing forward. You try harder. You rest more. You change something, a habit, a schedule, a relationship, convinced that the right adjustment will restore the feeling you're chasing. But the feeling doesn't come back. And in the space where certainty used to live, something far more unsettling moves in. The quiet, creeping suspicion that you are falling apart. If what you just heard already feels familiar, if something in those words landed somewhere deeper than your mind, then this video was made for you. Subscribe right now, because what comes next will reframe everything you think you know about the season you are currently surviving. And turn on notifications, because the work we do on this channel does not stop at one video. The map goes further than this. Here is the paradox that no one prepares you for. The moments in life that feel most like destruction are in fact the moments that most resemble transformation. They are
Here is what no one tells you about the coping strategies you have spent your life building. They were never solving the problem. They were managing the distance between you and the problem. Think about that for a moment. Really sit with it. The work you couldn't stop doing. The relationships you stayed in far too long. The drink, the scroll, the obsessive planning, the relentless forward motion that you called ambition, but that was really just velocity, movement for the sake of never being still. None of it was healing anything. It was keeping something at bay. And for a while, that was enough. It worked. The distance held. Then it stopped working. Not gradually, not in a way you could negotiate with or adjust around. One day, the thing that always took the edge off simply didn't. You went back to the well, and it was dry. You tried harder and felt worse. The mechanism that had quietly been running your life for years, maybe decades, jammed. And in the silence that followed, everything you had been keeping at bay was still there, waiting, patient in the way that only the truth can afford to be. Jung would say the psyche engineered this deliberately. This is the insight that separates Jungian psychology from almost every other framework that tries to explain human suffering. Most systems treat psychological pain as malfunction, something gone wrong that needs to be corrected, managed, or eliminated. Jung saw it differently. He understood the unconscious not as a passive storage room of repressed memories, but as an active, purposeful intelligence, one that is always moving the whole person toward wholeness, even when the methods feel like destruction. The unconscious is not passive. It does not sit quietly while you outrun it. When the gap between who you are performing and who you actually are becomes too wide, when the architecture of your daily life has drifted too far. Once the coping mechanisms collapse, the psyche does not pause. It does not offer you a moment of grace to gather yourself, to prepare, to steel your nerves for what comes next. It moves immediately. And what it moves toward is the thing you have spent the longest time running from. The things you buried start coming back. Not metaphorically, not as vague emotional discomfort you can attribute to stress or fatigue. They come back with faces, with names, with the specific, undeniable weight of everything you decided, consciously or not, was too dangerous to carry in the open. The anger you concluded wasn't acceptable. The grief you never allowed yourself to finish. The version of yourself you were most ashamed of. The needy one. The furious one. The one who wanted things you spent years convincing yourself you didn't want. They surface through dreams you cannot shake when you wake, through reactions that feel grotesquely disproportionate to what triggered them, through a creeping, destabilizing sense that you are becoming someone you no longer recognize. You call it losing control. Jung called it the shadow returning for integration. The shadow is one of the most misunderstood concepts in all of analytical psychology, and its misunderstanding is precisely what makes it so dangerous. The shadow is not your worst self. It is not the darkness lurking beneath your goodness, waiting to corrupt you. It is every part of yourself you decided was unacceptable and pushed below the surface. It accumulated there, not dissolving, not weakening, but gathering.
Here is the most dangerous lie you have been told about transformation. That it is something that happens to you when conditions are finally right, when the timing is better, when you have rested enough, healed enough, prepared enough. That the breakthrough is waiting somewhere ahead of you, in the next chapter, the next relationship, the next version of your circumstances. And that your job is simply to survive until you arrive there. That lie has kept more people imprisoned than any external force ever could. Because the truth, the radical, disorienting, liberating truth that Jung spent his entire career trying to articulate, is that the breakthrough is not ahead of you. It is inside the very moment you are desperately trying to escape. The darkness is not the obstacle between you and transformation. The darkness is.
Here is the hardest truth of everything you have heard in this video. Most people who have lived through exactly what you are living through right now, the collapse, the disorientation, the shadow surfacing, the exhaustion that goes deeper than sleep can reach, did not make it to the other side. Not because they weren't capable, not because the transformation wasn't real and wasn't waiting for them, but because they arrived at this exact point, this precise threshold, carrying the full weight of a self that had already died, but had not yet been replaced. And in that unbearable in-between, they chose the exit. They rebuilt the old structure. They went back. They decided that the darkness was permanent because it had lasted long enough to feel that way. They gave up in the final hour. And they spent the rest of their lives wondering why the same collapse kept finding them, why the same patterns returned, wearing different faces in different circumstances, but carrying the identical weight, why the well kept running dry, why the coping mechanism kept failing, why no new chapter ever felt genuinely new. Jung was unsparing